people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
It was great experience. The whole team is just, they're a great vibe. They put on a good show, great fights, and the locals, they loved us. So we felt local, but yeah, and the fight just topped off an amazing trip. So yeah.
And when are you looking to fight again?
Look, we obviously would like to stay active, and I'm happy to be called up whenever, but we're looking at March. So back over,
Is that going to be in America or in Australia?
In America.
I'm not sure if you saw today, the WBC said that the women's rounds are going to stay at 2 minutes. What are your thoughts on that?
They're going to stay in 2 minutes?
That's what the WBC announced.
Yeah. I mean, I'm happy to go either way.
Yeah.
If it's 3 minutes, then they need to pay us. So bump the money up. I'll fight 5 minutes if the money's there.
Okay,
so bring on the money.
You don't mind either way.
Yeah. As long as it's fair money-wise. Yeah.
Another example of what I was telling you about before. It's not unanimous and it's not across the board. Not every female fighter, champion, like Australia's Desley Robinson, wants 3-minute rounds. Not unless it comes with more money. If you want them to have more time in, some of them want more money. And there's nothing wrong with that. Why would you do the same job for the same money if you're doing the job for a longer duration of time? That doesn't make sense, not to Desley Robinson, but the irony is that Desley is with MVP, and MVP have fast become the biggest advocates for 3-minute rounds in a women's boxing match. Well, she's not necessarily towing the company line by saying what she's saying. Amanda Serrano, Alicia Baumgartner, and more recently Chantel Cameron have dropped their WBC titles in protest of the WBC's hardline stance. They will not sanction a women's boxing match for 3-minute rounds, so those champions have elected to drop their titles in protest. Desley doesn't hold the WBC's middleweight title. She holds the IBF and WBO titles. The other two are still vacant. So, it's not like Desley has to drop any of her alphabet titles, though it's also important to note that every single one of Desley's fights, including her MVP debut, was for 10-2s, not 3s. Now, it just so happens that the other 2 alphabet titles at the weight, the vacant ones, will be on the line later on this month on the 20th when Kay Scott and Olivia Curry have their rematch. Initially, when they first fought, it was to crown a unified middleweight champion, but because the fight was scored a draw, they have to run it back to gain some finality and crown a champion at this weight. Fight will be promoted by Dimitri Salita, who promoted their first fight. He's also promoting former champion Tony Harrison now. He's going to be boxing on that same show. Essentially, there will be another unified champion crowned in December, hopefully, and by the time that Desley Robinson returns in March, she may be facing the winner of that fight. The winner of that fight for Undisputed. Now, it's also important to note that Desley Robinson has already fought her countrywoman, Kay Scott, 2 times. She fought Kay Scott in March of last year, lost the first fight, then had the rematch in December, won the rematch. If they fight again, that will be the tiebreaker, and that will be for Undisputed. If Kay Scott beats Olivia Curry. If Olivia wins, then Desley will fight her in March. That's how I see it. As I believe, the people at MVP are targeting the winner of that fight for what is their unified middleweight champion. And if Desley is fortunate enough to get her crack at the apple for Undisputed, I don't think they're going to stand on principle. I don't think they're going to worry about 3-minute rounds getting in the way of Desley fighting for Undisputed. Fighting for all the belts. They didn't let it get in the way of Shernika Johnson fighting for all the belts, so at least momentarily, I think they'll put that stance on hold. Desley Robinson had a busy year last year. She fought 5 times last year, and 2 times this one, more recently making her MVP debut last month, stopping Logan Haller in the second round of a contest scheduled for 10. Made her U.S. debut, and according to her, she'll be back stateside in March for what I think will be the undisputed middleweight championship. We'll see if the prediction sticks. In men's featherweight news, yesterday, south of the border, Rafael Espinoza successfully defended his WBO title for what I believe was the 4th time against the game challenger in Ukraine's own Arnold Khegai, who lasted all but 10 rounds before they had to pull him out and save him from himself. Too brave for his own good, but at times, tough just ain't enough. He was getting mollywopped. He was getting battered. Each round that passed was worse than the last for Arnold Kagay. Real David and Goliath kind of deal. David and Goliath kind of situation if Goliath squashed David under his boot. Arnold Kagay is a fighter who used to fight at 122. I remember because he fought Stephen Fulton down there. But 5 years ago, maybe longer? He has since moved up to the featherweight division. He was losing fights at Super Bantam. Now he's losing fights at feather. Losing his fucking eyesight. Badly swollen left eye throughout the course of this thing, with a large hematoma forming around it, blood streaming down from his nose in what was an uphill battle with no victory in sight. Try as he might, he occasionally landed the short counter left hook around the side and the looping right over the top that had no noticeable effect on Rafael Espinoza whenever he did manage to land something. Success for Arnold was far and few in between the punishment that he was taking. Star of the show for Rafael Espinoza, the most statuesque featherweight champion in the division, what I think is the most statuesque featherweight in the world, simultaneously the most dangerous, was the uppercut. He landed uppercut after uppercut after uppercut, which is the right punch to throw against a noticeably shorter fighter. For that taller fighter, uppercut's the ticket. You can turn your hips into it, really drive that punch, and catch that little guy on his way in. Do a lot of damage very quickly. That shorter fighter might be able to slip past and under the straight punches, bob and weave under the hooks, but the uppercut, that one's a bit harder to dodge for that shorter fighter with a lower center of gravity. So time and time again, we saw Rafael Espinoza dig in with uppercut after uppercut after uppercut, badly bloodying and bruising a very brave Arnold Khegai. Why is the uppercut harder for the shorter fighter to dodge? Well, the other punches, the straight punches and the hooks. Because the other fighter is so much smaller than Rafael Espinoza, he can bob and weave under those punches or slip those punches, avoid those punches, and his shorter stature assists him in doing that. Whereas with an uppercut, since the shorter fighter's already bending at the waist and bending at the knees, fighting at a slight crouch, that uppercut can hit him where he don't see it. Since it's coming from below. And since it's coming from below, it can split the guard and hit the target. Where the other punches you can catch on the arms and gloves, take something off of them, the uppercut, that's the one that the taller fighter can slip in with a lot of success, and Rafael Espinoza had a lot of success with that particular punch, reducing a very game Arnold Khegai to a bloody mess. The referee counted him out in his corner in the 10th. Didn't let him come out for the 11th, nor should they have. I feel that the fight could have been stopped and should have been stopped 2 rounds prior. And it just is what it is. Post-fight, unbeaten up-and-comer and WBC interim champion Bruce "Shoo Carrington stated, "I'm going to be the one to beat him being Rafael Espinoza. I'm going to chop that tree down. Just like I said before, Espinoza is a great fighter, and that's why I want to fight him. Let's get it done." And you know they're both with Top Rank. Veteran boxing scribe Dan Rafael took notice, saying, "Not a lot of guys calling out Espinoza, but there is one, Bruce Carrington, who stated, 'I'm the only one.'" Not so fast. In my previous video, we talked about a joint effort from the people at Top Rank and the people at Pro Box to put reigning champion Angelo Leo in the ring with Rafael
at some point next year, provided that Angelo stays IBF champion in February when he defends his title against the voluntary.
That might get in the way of Bruce's plans to corner that champion. Currently, Bruce is in line to fight Stephen Fulton, except that Stephen is off to 130 to challenge O'Shaquie Foster for his WBC title. So, what's likely going to happen is the green and gold title will go vacant at 126, and Bruce will either be elevated to full champion or fight a top-ranked contender for it. He's been calling for an Espinoza fight for a while. Don't really know why Top Rank hasn't made it yet. It could be their broadcast situation, that for the last few months they haven't had a broadcast partner, so they don't have the resources at this time to make that fight.
Maybe not. Maybe next year.
I don't really know that we get Carrington versus Espinoza because I don't know how much longer either of those fighters can keep making featherweight. They're actually both on the big side for 126-pounders. I give Rafael maybe another year at that weight. And Bruce...
It's the same with him. He's 27 going on 28.
I don't think either of those two guys are going to be there much longer. Maybe Bruce is there long enough to win a title, but I don't know about him getting an Espinoza fight, especially if Rafael is going to be fighting Angelo. Now, I've seen some boxing fans in some quarters growing impatient with Bruce that he hasn't fought a solid fighter, a quality fighter at featherweight yet, but I reiterate what I've said in many videos, it's just not his fault. If Stephen is moving up in weight, Nick Ball's got a mandatory to satisfy, Rafael's been fighting voluntaries and Angelo's about to. What can Bruce do about that? He can't force those guys to fight him.
Does he beat Rafael? Do you think he stands a chance?
I don't really know, to be honest with you, because we've only seen Bruce beat a certain level of opponent. We don't actually know how good he is or how good he isn't based on his limited opposition. So I can't tell you with any confidence that I think he beats Rafael. Though I would like to see him get a chance. I would like to see him get his crack at the apple. I just don't know that he's going to, because he's been at featherweight for a while, and so has Rafael. And I can't give either of them more than another year at that weight, given their physical dimensions. These are big boys.
Big for 126.
So the prediction stuck, and Rafael Espinoza reduced Arnold Khegai to a bloody mess, to nobody's surprise. You didn't need to be clairvoyant to see this coming. Congratulations to Rafael.
Over to our next segment, the Ring IQ mailbag. Reactions are still pouring in to Conor Benn's revenge over Chris Eubank this weekend.
Now, in my recap video, I talked about the ongoing narrative that the only reason Conor Benn won that fight was because Chris Eubank Jr. was weight drained, and how I don't agree with that narrative because Chris wasn't subject to anything yesterday that he wasn't subject to earlier this year. He won the first fight and lost the second.
Subject to the same weight stipulations, the same clauses. The difference? Conor came back better. That's how I saw it. How Mr. Boxing Moves saw it, however, Jules, respectfully, you're wrong on this one. Just like you were wrong on the reasons Canelo would beat Crawford, and I tried to explain to you why Crawford would win the fight in bullet points. Even though most of the time I agree with you, you're wrong about Eubank Jr. Two things could be true at the same time. True, Conor made adjustments and fought a better fight, but I'm sorry you just don't know boxing if you think that Eubanks wasn't overtrained and weight drained.
Let me put it to you this way, Mr. Boxing. Maybe I don't know boxing. Maybe I'm not supposed to because I'm just a customer, but you know what I did know? That Conor would win the fight, because I picked Conor to win the fight after wrestling with the idea.
For several weeks I wrestled with the outcome of this fight. I was leaning towards Chris Eubank Jr. at first on the premise that he enlisted the aid of Bo Mack. And then at the very last minute, which you would have heard in the last few live streams, I decided to go with Conor. Something told me Conor was going to get it done. I'm going to go with Conor. I'm going with Conor. I think he going to pull it off, and it ain't going to be no special shit. I just think he going to crack him real fucking hard and get him out of there. I'm going to go with Conor Benn. At first, I was leaning towards Chris because, you know, Bo Mack and because he won the first one and it's all love. But I'm like, Brody, you in your mid-30s doing that same shit to your body, bro. Boiling down to 160 when your body is screaming at you. Move up. You keep doing it for the bag. Yeah, I got Conor.
Let me fill you in on a little secret, Mr. Boxing Moves. I didn't wait up until after the fight to start talking about Chris Eubank Jr.'s weight and his physical condition. I said that before the fight.
Even I thought that he was weight drained, but here's the kicker. I thought he was weight drained in the first fight. Every single punch that Conor Benn got in with in the first fight rattled Chris Eubank Jr.'s cage. To the eye, Conor Benn looked the bigger puncher of the two, even though Chris was the bigger man. And I chalked that up to Chris Eubank Jr. being weight drained. See, he was weight drained yesterday, but he was also weight drained in the first fight. So how did he win the first fight and lose the second if he was weight drained in both?
Conor came back better. It's what I said. People don't want to acknowledge that because they have an axe to grind with Conor Benn due to the doping fiasco, and they really don't like Eddie Hearn. They don't like that he has another star rising. They don't want to admit that Conor Benn came back better.
No one said that Chris Eubank Jr. wasn't weight drained. I said he was weight drained in the first fight. I think he was weight drained yesterday. But the reason it didn't work out yesterday is because Conor came back better.
He didn't blow his load early on like he did in the first fight. He was more methodical, more measured in his approach, using his lead, setting up his punches, and not just jumping in, swinging for the fences. No nervous energy, like I said. So don't overstate the role of Chris Eubank Jr. being weight drained yesterday when he was weight drained in the first fight. I see a lot of Monday morning quarterbacks like Oscar De La Hoya who said, "Let me give you a little tutorial on boxing since you all don't know shit." Eubank never had a chance due to the weight drain.
Well, that's easy to say after the fact, but who did you pick to win, Oscar? What were you saying beforehand versus what you're saying now?
Three-weight world champion Shakur Stevenson followed up by saying most people don't know shit about boxing, and the Twitter experts are gonna say, well, he did it the first time, even more reason why he looked like that in the second.
And who did you pick to win the second fight, Shakur? What were you saying before the fight versus what you're saying now? Because anybody can do what you two guys are doing, act like you knew the whole time after the fight is over. Who did you pick to win beforehand? Did you pick Conor? Because I picked Conor.
What about Oscar? You know, Oscar loves to run his mouth these days. Who did he pick to win the fight versus what he's saying after it's already over? I got no stock in annotations and anecdotes.
From boxers, ex-boxers, or boxing professionals, especially not after Lou DiBella, Hall of Fame promoter, was caught in the act. Before the fight, he said Chris Eubank Jr. would beat Conor Benn 10 times out of 10, so that after the fight, when he's wrong, he can start moaning about the weight, belly aching about the weight.
The only question I have for these esteemed professionals, all of these experts, is who did you pick to win the fight beforehand and why? And if that don't match with what you're saying now, I don't really need to know what you think.
You got that, Mr. Boxing Moves? Because even I said that Chris is drained. But that ain't the only reason he lost, or even the real reason he lost. No, he was drained in the first fight. The first cut was a hard cut, and the second cut was a hard cut. So how was he able to win the first fight if he was drained in both?
Conor Benn came back better. I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, even though the adjustments were very obvious to anybody who knows their boxing. Conor didn't show anything semblant of a jab in that first fight. He wasn't measuring, he wasn't setting up his punches, he was just swinging for the fences the first time out. The second time out, he tidied it all up.
He paced himself, didn't blow his wad.
Didn't get tired, which didn't let Chris into the fight like the first time, and that's why Conor won. Not just Chris Eubank Jr.'s weight.
That's all I have to say about that.